Big video on portraits today, Jordan. You all set?
Yeah, so for those portraits, you want me to get in touch with a modeling agency, get a professional in?
Nah, just wear a nice sweater. Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. It is Chris Nichols here. We just recently had a great suggestion for a new video. What would our favorite portrait setup be? Lens and camera combination at different price points. Now, the first thing I want to say is this. In this talk, I'm going to be pretty much sticking to prime lenses. I do prefer primes for portraiture. You get wider apertures, more shallow depth of field. I like the versatility that brings. However, I often will use and recommend zoom lenses for portraits as well. Just keep that in mind. We're not going to cover those today, but that is also a great option. The other thing I want to say before we get into it is a big special thanks to the camera store here in Calgary for letting us borrow the gear to do a lot of our setups and our choices. So big shout out to them. However, for the rules of our game, we're going to do USD price points. So let's set up some rules for our little hypothetical game that we're going to play here. My first setup is going to be under $1,000 USD. Then we're going to do 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, and then under 10,000 is going to kind of be our dream kit, you know, money is no object kind of thing. So let's get into our first choice, under $1,000, our favorite portrait setup. All right, let's start with our first honorable mention under $1,000 USD. The Sony a6100. I like this a lot for people to start doing portraits. The eye detect works great. Real-time tracking with eye detect is fantastic if you're trying to take portraits of people moving or kids, street photography. It's a nice platform all around, and it does take nice photos. Now, to stay under budget, I was then looking at the Sigma 30mm 1.4. It's a third-party option, but it's a good lens, and it is affordable. The only catch for me personally, it's around that sort of normal 45 to 50mm equivalent range. I'm not a big fan of portraits with kind of classic 50mm lens. It's good for group shots, and you can always crop to get a tighter looking perspective, but personally, I like to have something more in that 85 to 100mm kind of range myself. So then I looked at, well, what about the excellent Sigma 56mm 1.4? Awesome lens, but unfortunately, it puts us over budget. But then we thought, you know what, there is another body on the market which is going to give us basically the same image quality, really nice and easy to use, and it also works with the Sigma 56mm 1.4, but at a lower budget, and that's the Canon EOS M50 version 2. A great camera. We're still cheating a little bit though. We're a little bit over budget by 30 bucks. So
Cheating on the first one
I
already?
know, we're breaking the rules already, but maybe your folks can lend you some money or break open a piggy bank or, I don't know, like give the store $1,000 and an IOU. Anyways, it's a nice setup, and if you let us break the rules, that's what I'd recommend. Now, we want to take a sample photo for you, but oddly enough, although we had access to an M52, we did not have access to the Sigma 56mm 1.4 in that same mount. So here's the a6100 with the Sigma 56mm, and if you can really push the budget, that would be a great choice. Now let's tackle under $2,000 USD. Now, we're still in APS-C camera territory here, but the best of the APS-C cameras, and I think Jordan and I both agree, the Fujifilm X-S10 would be an awesome option here. Like the sensor, I like the way the eye detect autofocus works, and IBIS is a great benefit as well. So it really just comes down to what lens am I going to go with here. Now, Fujifilm do make an excellent 90mm f2 lens. It gives us 135mm focal length equivalent. I really like it for portraits, and there's a particular guy who might or might not be behind the camera right now who said, Chris, this is what you should go with, but it's my picks. I prefer 85mm focal length, so f you, Jordan. So because of that, I'm going to choose the XS10 with the Fujifilm 56mm 1.2. A good lens. I get significantly more light. I don't have to back up really far if I'm trying to shoot couples standing together, something like that. And so I just find it more versatile, and it still keeps us under budget. All right, now we're under $3,000, and this gets us into full frame territory. But before we talk about the camera body, I want to talk about the lens I'm going to go with. Either way, it's the Sigma 85mm 1.4 DGDN. Great optical performance, even wide open. Great value for the dollar. So this is an awesome lens, and it's quite compact. Now, I can get this in both L mount, or I can get it in Sony E mount. So Panasonic S5 is a great choice. Love the image quality, the camera handles well. It's also an excellent video platform as well. Contrast detect autofocus only, but it does still have good accurate eye detect autofocus. But it is still gonna be my runner-up, even though it's such good value for the dollar as well. I'm going to go with the Sony a7C. Now, the camera doesn't handle as well as the Panasonic, and the EVF is terrible, but the eye detect and real-time tracking autofocus just makes things very simple, enhances your hit rate, and I think that does play a big part in getting nice portrait work. I still get to use the excellent Sigma 85mm 1.4, and it still keeps me under budget. Our next option is under $5,000 USD, but this was a difficult one because there's so many options, lots of good gear, lots of brands. Now, a certain videographer suggested the Sony a7R3A with its 50mm f1.2. Now, granted, that gives me a lot of light, but you know how I feel about 50mm and about that particular videographer, so forget that. So then my next thought was, well, what about the Canon R6? I really like the way that camera handles and performs, good autofocus, feels nice, but Canon has a bit of an issue when it comes to portrait lenses. They don't have a lot of good mid-range options. I could go with the 85mm f2 from Canon, great lens, absolutely, but then I feel like I'm missing out because I have money to spend and there's better options out there. But then what about the 85mm 1.2? Well, way too expensive, unfortunately. And I could adapt EF lenses, but that's not ideal. There are some third-party options coming out, like Samyang making autofocus lenses, but there's still not a lot of that on the market. But then it occurred to me, our best option, it's always been right there in front of us, the Nikon Z7 II. We love the image quality, some of the best you'll find in any full-frame mirrorless camera setup, and also they make a really nice 85mm 1.8. So now I'm getting an excellent lens, excellent body, still good light gathering capability, and sneaking just under budget. So now that brings us to under $10,000, our dream camera setup for portraits, and then, you know, our mind is dizzy with all these different fantasy options, like the Nikon, maybe with a Noct, you know, but that's become a standard unit of weight measurement for us. We don't even know if that lens actually exists. We haven't seen one since the first pre-production model anyway. So then we think, well, what about the Canon EOS R5? Love that camera. Handles well, great autofocus, and now I can afford the RF 85mm 1.2, and that's a very strong contender. But then, you know, this videographer and I, we kind of started thinking, you know, we've been fighting each other all day. Why don't we come together in a spirit of friendship, unity, and cooperation? And we came to an agreement. So we came together and we chose the Fujifilm GFX 100S with the 110mm f2.
Yeah, boy.
Right? I mean, it's an awesome choice. Our favorite portrait lens. The camera handles well, it's light and compact, all the image quality you could ever ask for. But then we thought, why stop there? What about $20,000? Well, then we could go with the GFX 100, their flagship camera with the 110mm lens. But then I was like, why do that? I mean, the vertical battery grip is probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever held, and battery grips can burn in the fiery pits of hell. So I'm still going to go with the GFX 100S. It's got more effective IBIS, it handles better, and I still get that gorgeous 110mm f2 lens. But then I was like, well, what if money's no object? I could do, I don't know, an Alpha with a digital back, or like a Polaroid 20x24 land camera with a lifetime supply of film. That'd be, but I'm like, nah, I like eye detect and I like compact. Let's go GFX 100S with the GF 110mm f2. That's still the best choice. All right, I found that a lot of fun, and I hope you guys did too. And I know there's some stuff that we missed, so let us know what you think might be great portrait setups in your opinion. We'd love to hear those. Leave those in the comments below. Or if you have other suggestions for other categories of photography to cover under different price points, we'd love to tackle that too. Otherwise, do check out dpreview.com. There's an awesome article, links in the description below, for a portrait photographer's buyer's guide. You should check that out. Otherwise, please subscribe, please like the channel, and we will see you all very soon.